I always now say start with the end game in mind. Really, the secret sauce for our business was the know-how. So that's when we looked to sort of protect out the know-how and sort of license that from the university into the company. I think it's having an appreciation of the IP. It's knowing your strengths and being willing to work with other partners.
Welcome to the IP-driven startup podcast from Marks & Clerk. Today, Professor Aline Miller shares the reality of commercialising university research. As founder of Manchester BIOGEL, she raised over £4 million, navigated the complexities of IP ownership and protection, and achieved a successful exit in 2023. Now developing her second venture, Molla Pharm, Aline knows what it takes to transform laboratory discoveries into valuable companies. Aline, you've obviously had a really successful and exciting career across academia, academic research and in industry. I want to start off today by perhaps getting some information and your version of the story around the success with Manchester BIOGEL. Where did it come from and where did it end up going?
Yeah, so delighted to be here today. So Manchester BIOGEL came out of sort of 10 years of research that we had done at the University of Manchester. And it kind of started when we were involved in a big EU consortium project looking at heart repair, actually. And we looked and developed peptide hydrogels, so fully biocompatible, so using nature's building blocks to make hydrogels that are scaffolds for three-dimensional cell culture, which then can be used for tissue regeneration or for organoid growth, so growth of mini organs for drug discovery testing. And we were working on this project, and part of what we were doing was going around to different groups and conferences to talk about the work that we've been doing. And people kept coming to talk to us and say, how can we use these hydrogels in our own research? So we kind of started to see that there was interest in the materials that we were making. And so we used to send the powder and a recipe in terms of how to make them. And the people couldn't replicate. They couldn't follow instructions. And two, even if they did, they couldn't quite replicate the properties of the materials. So that's when we realized we needed to make the materials directly for people. So we started to do that, and our postdoc at the time got a little tired of going around delivering and training people. So that's when we started the company.
Sure. Do you understand why the other groups or the potential customers that you were discussing this with couldn't replicate the same properties in the biogels?
Yeah, I think because it was very much a formulation based challenge, and one, you had to get sort of mixing regimes correctly. It was very reproducibly, pH shifts reproducibly, and sort of salt concentration, so and sort of key ingredients in it. So it was a formulation technique. So very similar to Unilever making hair conditioners, for example, getting everything in the right steps and the right processing conditions.
So lots of know-how that was very specific to your group that went into that process.
That's when we sort of started the company. We were at a point in our career where we're like, well, what's next? Oh, let's try this as a little bit of sort of fun and something different. And then we sort of started the company, got some seed funding, and then went on an accelerator program. And that's when sort of I walked in as maybe a cocky academic, thinking I knew it all, but then very quickly realised that I didn't know anything about business or commercial aspects. So I had to sort of pivot very quickly from sort of an academic mindset to a commercial mindset to build out the team and thinking about how we protect IP. So we've got something that's an investable proposition, and how we define our value proposition in terms of what problem are we solving for customers. Those two things were really key pivot points when we set up and grew the company.
So you mentioned the accelerator you went on. Before you went on that accelerator, did you feel like you had a knowledge of IP and perhaps customer discovery and all the other aspects that it took to get Manchester BIOGEL up and running before, or was that because of the accelerator? How did you feel you upskilled yourself at that early stage?
I think I thought I knew, but I didn't. So in terms of sort of the IP situation, we had worked with our tech transfer office, and we had two patents at the time around the technology, but I wasn't aware of the breadth of IP opportunities, because really the secret sauce for our business was the know-how around the formulation. So that's when we looked to sort of protect out the know-how and sort of license that from the university into the company. But we also trademarked names, our product names, our business name, and also copyrighted many of the protocols that users had to go through to be able to use mixed cells in and do downstream assays and things like that. So yeah, that's when I kind of learnt the breadth of IP and how you can package that into an investable proposition.
So it was actually in practice implementing the IP strategy that is where you really upskilled yourself, rather than just sitting in IP workshops and on accelerators. It's just getting your hands dirty with doing the IP implementation was the key for you.
Yes, and talking to experts who could help us with that process was really beneficial. Yeah, and yeah, the customer discovery. I thought that because we used these hydrogels, that I knew all the customers and knew why they wanted to use our materials. But actually, you really need to go into the granularity of it, and we really narrowed down our. We didn't narrow down the product offering, but we narrowed down the messaging around the product offering.
What did you see the product as originally? Was it biogels on a shelf, or was it you come to us and we'll develop a biogel for you? How did you? Was it a mixture of a service and a product? How did you see that from the get-go?
Yeah, initially we were going to have products and a service, and I teach students now around entrepreneurship, and I always show them my first slide before the accelerator and my first slide after the accelerator, and ask them to spot the chasm of a difference. So when we first started, we had we're making hydrogels, and we were going to solve the world's health problem. So with these gels, we're going to solve cancer, we're going to solve liver disease, we're going to solve bone repair, you name it. We were going to get hydrogels in there. Massive market, so broad, no focus and actual delivery. And we were also going to offer a service, because the gels, you can tune the properties of them in terms of mechanical strength, functionality. So we could tailor the materials for anybody's needs. Again, so broad, not focused. So we then narrowed down, really understood sort of the customer's pain points, the materials they were currently using, why they were not happy with those. So then we sort of really narrowed down to answer those pain points, and we were going to then go into the market as a replacement for the current key product, which is about 70% of the market share. So a tumour that's grown in mice that is decellularized and then sold as matrigel. And obviously it's not ethical, but people didn't really think where that product they were using had come from. So we kind of helped educate them on those points, and we had other USPs that overcame the challenges of a natural product versus a highly defined, controlled, translatable product.
And where did the technology go in the end? Did you end up getting it on the market, or able to service customers in the way you envisaged you would at the start?
Yes, we got the product on the market. We scaled up the production. We tapped into, initially we went for academic customers because it's who we knew. But actually that wasn't so attractive from an investor perspective, because that was like getting my mates to buy the products. They're like, well, show real market traction. So then we started to widen out to CROs within the UK, and then we started a sort of a global distribution network, which is really exciting, managing all the export control issues that we had to learn. And yeah, we had someone in the team who was really good at that side of things. And then so we built the company up. We were 10 people at the end point. I had come back. I took time out to go run the company, but then I came back to the university, and we were at the pivot point whether we go for further funding or whether we sort of stop and transfer and sell the technology on, which we did do, because technically we ran out of money, and we sort of stopped and sold the IP on and took some of it back to the university and I now licensed it out. And the products are now still being sold a decade later through a company based in Cambridge.
So in terms of the actual licensing agreement that you put in place, did that take a while to put together, or was that something that could happen within a couple of weeks? Was that a challenge to you? Do you remember much of the legal aspects of it, or was there anything in particular that stands out to you in that process that you would say to those listeners and viewers, watch out for this, or have a think about this?
I think for us, so we ended up licensing the technology because at the time the tech transfer office didn't want to spin it out, which was fine actually, and probably a good thing for us. Quite different scenario and setup that the university has got now. This was 13, 14 years ago we did it. So it was quite tricky at the time, and we took advice from an IP firm, lawyer firm. I'm an academic, really, and great in the lab, sort of thinker, blah blah blah. Negotiator, not so much. So they negotiated a great deal on our behalf. So I think it's knowing your strengths and being willing to work with other partners.
Right people. Yeah. That's really important.
And it did take some time. It took several months from
finding the right people is important, and also developing that relationship and trust takes a little bit of time. You can't just bring someone in overnight, can you? So
yeah, it's using your network and connections as well, because we found, the IP firms were not in our normal network. So we found a friend of a friend who had that in their network.
So let's talk a little bit around how you funded Manchester BIOGEL and what that looked like in terms of, did you start with grant funding and then go to VCs, or was it the other way around? And what were the challenges in those early stages of getting funding in?
We put a little bit of friends and family money in just to get us kick-started and to get us off the ground. We then got some seed funding, some VC, EIS, SEIS actually, funding to kick us off. And I think when we were at that stage, we didn't know anything about the funding landscape or what was right, what was wrong. So we went out, talked to a few people, got offered some SEIS funding. Oh, right, great, let's take it. Which was fine and good, and it enabled us to open a cupboard of a lab and a cupboard of an office in Alderley Park and get us going. I think we didn't appreciate at the time sort of the fees that come with this type of funding. We just thought it was normal. And it is, but we never thought to negotiate. I don't know how much wiggle room there is to negotiate, but we could or should have tried. And of course, that then stayed with us through the entire sort of journey of the company. So after that, we took in money from private investors who had set up sort of an investment company. They'd made money selling rivets to the car industry, so they sort of set up this fund to invest in university companies. So we took 750k at the time from them, and great investment, no fees. We were their first company that they invested in, so we had a huge learning journey to go on both sides, because this was only sort of our second investor. This was their first investment into a company in a sector they knew nothing about. So they came in and said, well, we're going to increase revenue exponentially, and we're going to start tomorrow. Hang on a minute, we've still got to prove the product yet. This is sort of a life sciences slow burn, long-term company. So I think we probably should have on both sides thought a little bit more carefully on what they were investing in and what we were who we were taking money from. We got there in the end, but it did take about 6 to 9 months just to for both sides to sort of appreciate where each other was coming from, and for them to trust me. So they did ask me at that point. That's when I went into the company and ran it as CEO. But it took them some time to trust me to run it as CEO.
And when you were attracting that early stage grant funding, what would your advice be in terms of important things that you need to communicate to those grant funders to attract that initial funding? What are the key aspects of the business they're looking at, you think?
Understanding sort of the fundamental value proposition. So it's understanding sort of the IP and the core technology, understanding your route to market, what that route is, who you're selling it to, how long that's going to take, and how long it'll take to get then repeat business to really show that you are getting deep traction with your tech, and what your exit plan is. I think we were very naive on that front. As in, we didn't have an exit plan. We just kind of stumbled into forming the company because it was a cool thing to do. It was a bit fun. Then we suddenly had employees. We were running a lab. We had health and safety considerations, HR, bankroll, payroll. It's, oh, crikey, what on earth is all this? You're suddenly feeling the weight of responsibility for your team and your investors then too. And yeah, we didn't have an exit strategy at the beginning. So when the investors, we were starting to have board meetings, well, what's your exit strategy? So I had to go behind the scenes and talk to my mentor. What's our exit strategy? What do they mean? What kind of things are they looking for? So that's when we had to sort of learn what would be sort of a valuable exit strategy for what we had, which was effectively a life sciences consumables business. So, X times revenue and so on and so forth. So then projecting to the end. So I think definitely have your exit strategy. So I always now say start with the end game in mind. So we're going again with another venture. Just starting to navigate the tech transfer office to spin out this time. And yeah, we're starting with the end game in mind.
Excellent. So looking at the either the exit or the customer.
Yes. Yeah. So this time, it's the exit.
In terms of the Manchester BIOGEL exit, how did that come about? What was the story behind that?
It was very difficult to do. I co-founded it with my long-term collaborator at the university, who's also my husband. A year before the company closed, I came back to the university, partly because my leave of absence was running out, and partly they tapped me on the shoulder and shone a sort of a shiny new job at me. So I was like, okay, this sounds good. The company was at a stage where it was purely a commercial challenge. So we kind of done everything we could do with demonstrating the tech and scaling it up, and then it was just to turn the handle. So it needed a sort of a new type of CEO to, we'd gone through the growth, the startup phase, and it was ready to sort of for growth phase. So we took in a new CEO, which was extremely difficult to find because it was very much our business, and so very difficult to also hand over your baby to someone who's coming in with fresh ideas. So then they came in, and the challenge was, okay, we're here. We need to fundraise to get to here. But that didn't quite happen. So that's when we ran out of money. We tried to sell the whole company on, which again was extremely emotional. That didn't work out. So that's when we said, okay, we need to close the company because we had no more money. We helped the team find other jobs. And then that's when we sold the technology on to someone who was actually licensing the technology through a distribution, one of our distribution partners. So they took it on, and we're doing a little bit of R&D with them, a little bit of a consultancy for them to help them move our Peptogel product through their portfolio.
And in terms of transferring the IP and the know-how and the knowledge to the new entity, was it simple? Was it a case of here we go, here are all the patents, or was there way more to it? How did you transfer all of that? Because you were saying earlier that it was very difficult for other entities to replicate the process to achieve your biogels. How did you manage that whole thing?
It was quite complex because there was IP that belonged to the university, and there was IP that sat in the company. So for the IP that belonged to the university, so we took it back to the university and licensed that out to cell guidance systems through a direct license agreement. So that bit was relatively straightforward. Just took a bit of time because universities were working to improve that. So that was relatively straightforward. And then there was other IP, sort of in the broadest of senses, some know-how, copyright, trademarks, that kind of thing, websites, social media platforms, all that kind of thing. So that was sort of a direct sale into cell guidance systems, which took a wee bit of time to negotiate, but that came through okay. And then we trained the folks at Cell Guidance Systems to manufacture the gels, and we still do a bit of QC for them. But yeah, we were lucky in the fact that we had that know-how in the company, but we also had a couple of people in our research group sort of trained on it as well, just so we knew we couldn't lose that know-how.
So you were mentioning that you have potentially a new venture that you're pushing forward, really focusing on that customer discovery aspect first, and then sort of feeding that back into the tech. Do you have anything? Is it too early to share, or is there something you can tell us about that we should be looking out for in the near future?
So I can tell you a little bit and give you a teaser. So the company is called Molla Pharm. We're yet to spin out actually, but we're looking at using the hydrogels. So we haven't gone too far, but for a specific therapeutic application. So we're being really targeted where we're going. We used all the sort of learnings from Manchester BIOGEL, very consumer-based business, margins relatively tight, broad market. So here we're going into sort of a high value market space, sort of therapeutic clinical product, where we're using the hydrogels to deliver drug molecules to treat endometriosis. And we can do this and treat in such a way that you've got sort of longevity of clinical outcome, but also treatments of endometriosis currently, which affects 1 in 10 women, actually, really high numbers, causes infertility. And a lot of endometrial patients are sort of women between 16, 18 to 40, sort of that age where people often want to have children, but if they're getting treatment, they can't because it interferes with their cycle. So our treatment allows sort of women to retain their fertility. So we're very excited about it.
Yeah, sounds amazing. And how are you resourcing? Have you built a team to work with you on that from the university, or have you brought in people from networks? How's that all panning out at the moment?
Yeah, so it's a bit of both. So we've got a nice team in the university. It's led by Kay Marshall, who's in pharmacy, who's a long-term expert in women's health, with Sarah Herrick, Alberto Sayani, and a postdoc, and a really talented postdoc, Debbie Fisher, who's done most of the experimental work. But we've also got clinical partner in Bury, and we're working with an external partner, Rory, who's come in to sort of be the CEO, who's got that business experience. And this time we've been smarter and made use of grant funding, because that's what we didn't do early enough in Manchester BIOGEL, just because I wasn't fully aware and didn't think about it too much. We should have leveraged Innovate funding much more. But this time we're using grant funding and sort of different schemes and pots within the university. So we've got money for Rory to come in and help us. We've got money, Debbie's doing a secondment out to get some pharmacokinetic data to sort of demonstrate that first step on the regulatory pathway.
So Aline, you obviously wear several different hats in amongst our Northwest ecosystem, and you've been a real leading figure in much of the development of the Oxford Road corridor and what the exciting stuff that's happening at the university. Do you want to share a little bit around IBIC with our viewers, and maybe then we'll perhaps move on to Unit M as well?
Yeah, so IBIC is the Industrial Biotechnology Innovation Catalyst. So it's a £5 million grant funded initiative that is from EPSRC to help build out, place and generate impact from the great sort of science and research that's been done right across the Northwest. So IBIC is led by the University of Manchester, co-created with Liverpool, but loops in all the other Northwest universities as well. So we work closely with Salford, Liverpool John Moores, Manchester Met, and now Edge Hill University too. And our sort of mission is to really sort of leverage our research, teaching, innovation asset base right across the Northwest to accelerate knowledge exchange and innovation to really sort of supercharge the growth of our bioeconomy in the Northwest, help create jobs and help really just build sort of the sustainable manufacturing base within the Northwest, because we're looking to help get sort of engineering biology aspects into biomanufacturing processes for everyday products, from foods to fuels to medicines to materials, to help sort of solve and tackle climate change.
When you're deploying these funds and your team at IBIC, what's an absolute must for you in a company for you to say, yeah, you're ready for funding? What if you had to say one thing, what would it be?
We deploy grants of various sizes to academics to work with businesses. The key thing that we look for is the company's willingness to take on and translate the learning that we can provide them, whether that be taking in IP from the university to generate new products, new processes, new ways to capture carbon, new ways to look at your feedstocks, your waste streams, and use engineering biology, use enzymes or chemical or mechanical ways to break that down to create feedstocks for sort of new high value chemicals, materials, etc. So it's a willingness to sort of open their doors to sort of new knowledge going in, and a willingness to sort of partner and sort of meet sort of the academics halfway.
So collaboration's at the heart of what you're looking for, really.
Yes, yeah. And whether that be new knowledge or whether the company just needs access to a high-end piece of kit that the university has, then that's also, we can fund that kind of interaction.
So based on your experience, what are the things that you're seeing that are problems in terms of successfully achieving grant funding or securing grant funding? Is there anything that you're seeing commonly across a lot of unsuccessful applicants that you think, oh, if only they just knew this before they came to us?
For our funding pots, because our money comes from UKRI, so it's sort of government funding, into the universities to go out to work with businesses, I think it's having an appreciation of the IP. So if they come and work with us and take one of these grants, then they don't automatically own all the IP, all the foreground IP that comes out of it. Companies typically only own the foreground IP if they fully fund research in the university. So I think having an appreciation of that, and obviously background IP is owned by the individual partners, but the foreground IP is typically owned by the university, and then there's first rights of refusal to exploit from the company. So I think just having a bit more of an appreciation of that aspect of things, that universities aren't just free sources of IP, that there has to be some quid pro quo.
It's that aspect of collaboration again, really, isn't it? Understanding that it's a partnership.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How about Unit 10? It's relatively new. I actually don't know a lot about it, despite doing a little bit of research. There's not that much out there at the moment what Unit M's about, what it's planning to do in Manchester, and it'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah, no, Unit M is the university's relatively new innovation unit. So it's kind of set up to be sort of the gateway to the university's innovation ecosystem. And when we say innovation ecosystem, we've redefined what that means in our 10-year 2035 strategy that was launched, I was going to say last month, but we're December now. It was launched back in October in 2025. And innovation for us is now everything from place-based infrastructure sites like Sister, all the way through to tech transfer office, student entrepreneurship, business engagement opportunities, but also learning. So partner enabled learning through, for example, taking master's students on for placements, or coming on teaching on our courses, or benefiting from training that we can offer, whether it be executive education or CPD in a specific topic area. So Unit M is sort of unlocking this potential, just really widening the umbrella of innovation activities and trying to encourage more people to come in and sort of work with the universities. And innovation and entrepreneurship sort of is a key aspect. So we're looking to delve into our own talent base. So we've got 47,000 students, we've got 13,000 staff, 8,000 of whom are researchers. What can we do to help people generate impact from all the good things they're doing in teaching, research, social responsibility, but also work more externally and bring people in to sort of the ecosystem to benefit from the great talent, skills and knowledge that we have, and to do that in a way that we work in a very agile, fast, disruptive way, because everybody who works with universities typically say, well, it's slow, it's cumbersome, it's difficult, don't never know who to talk to. So we're trying to overcome some of that, at least.
Okay, and I'm assuming that Unit M is going to work really closely with the Tech Transfer Office or the Innovation Factory.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so we'll be working very closely with the Tech Transfer Office, the Innovation Factory, the Masood Entrepreneurship Centre to help with student training and get that across the whole curriculum. That's the ambition. So every student touches base with entrepreneurship at some point. Even if they don't create their own startup, they've got a little bit of knowledge and know-how, which makes them then more employable, hopefully, at the end. And our business engagement and knowledge exchange team. So we can expand out the number of collaborations that we do have, partnerships that we have, and sort of deepen those that we already have.
Well, I think on that note, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to discuss your learnings and your journey with us today. And I hope everything goes well with Molla Pharm, Unit M and IPIC in the future.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the IP-driven startup podcasts from Marks & Clerk. If today's conversation got you thinking about your own IP strategy, we can help. Download our free ebook, The IP-Driven Startup, for practical guidance on building patent portfolios that attract investment and maximise exit value. Then speak to our expert team, because the most successful startups don't leave IP protection to chance. They build it into their strategy from day one.